I get it, Yu-Gi-Oh players. You want to be able to play the game you love. You just don't want to drop an exorbitant amount of money on it. It's perfectly fine to have a hobby that you love and have a life where, you use your money for other resources. In this video, I'm going to be talking about some competitive budget decks that you guys can play instead. These decks are fun, they're crafty, but more importantly, they can win in this meta. Okay guys, so you already know if you want to see more videos like this, be sure to destroy that like button. I love talking about decks that can compete in the format and giving you guys different angles depending on what type of player you are. The first strategy I want to talk to you guys about is actually a strategy that was expensive as all hell. Sky Striker Mobilize Engage hit around 100 a pop, meaning in order to play Sky Striker you need to spend at least 300 for a competitive deck. The fact that Sky Striker Mobilize Engage was banned made this deck so much cheaper, and players don't still understand how competitive it can be. Sky Strikers are still a really good deck in the format. Yes, they did lose that Mobilize Engage, that free +1, but it's still a very good control deck. People tend not to remember that Sky Striker maneuver afterburners allow you to destroy multiple cards on the side of the field, and so does jamming waves. Also, Shark Cannon can banish cards in your opponent's graveyard or special summon that monster to your side of the field. The new Sky Striker Ace Rose is no slouch either, allowing her to special summon herself to the side of the field with ease. Also, having Sky Striker Ace Kagari at 3 would help you in procuring any of your spell resources. I think that Sky Strikers have shifted from the best deck of the format to an engine to multiple decks to now that slow style anti-meta deck that it was meant to be. The new Duel Overload set does give this deck Needle Fiber, and it's still a pretty powerful card to use inside of the strategy. I still think that Sky Striker is an amazing deck, and it can top multiple events with the right player. Sky Striker Ace Rose is the most expensive card for you budget players. It sits at about $4 and you only need 2. I think the total of this deck is under $100, which is a far cry from its original pricing. Let's say that you're one of those players that just aren't a fan of Sky Strikers. Heck, you've probably played Sky Striker for quite some time and then just got sick and tired of playing the strategy. No biggie, we got plenty of other strategies. Pendulums did lose Heavy Metal Foes Electromite and 2 copies of Servant and Damien, but there's a silver lining to this. The deck can still make these terribly great negation boards without the use of the extra deck, meaning that Electromite was just a catalyst for Pendulum-based decks, not necessarily for Endymion. The next thing is that you did lose 2 Servants, but you were playing 6 copies of Servant of Endymion. Now you're only playing 4. The odds of you opening this card or opening a resource to get into this card are still drastically high, meaning that the strategy can still play Yu-Gi-Oh! And summon all of the Pendulum monsters it wishes within the right pilot's hands. The most expensive card for this deck is Mythical Beastmaster Cerberus at about $4. I think that the Pendulum deck is still $10 each, and if you just buy 3 Pendulum decks, you're pretty close to having the entire strategy. Pendulum and Damien doesn't really rely on certain cards in the extra deck, though it does make it better to have some of those expensive cards like Apollosa. It's not necessarily mandatory for the deck to thrive. And it's an amazing deck at making those negate boards that everybody craves for. At least once in a while. You haven't really played Yu-Gi-Oh! Until you've played a negation deck and ruined your opponent's day, right? I think one of the more controversial things is that players love Traptrix monsters. And then you get the weebs that love Traptrix monsters. They think they're the most amazing lolly. And until you realize that Traptrix aren't necessarily the girl that you're looking at, it's the actual, so that's kind of weird. Traptrix is a pretty cheap deck that can be really competitive. Traptrix Sarah being the most expensive card at about $8, using the effects of Traptrix Dionea and Traptrix Miramello to search you free trap hole cards, and Dionea to be able to special summon your Miramello for free rank 4 plays. Traptrix can be extremely good. You also have cards like Traptrix Reflation to be able to activate those trap hole cards from your deck, meaning that you can use cards like Floodgate Trap Hole to flip your opponent's monsters face down before they make that clutch Link or Xyz play. Traptrix Mantis kind of ties the entire deck on a little bow because it can surge all of your Traptrix monsters and then turns itself into your Traptrix Sarah, which also gets you free Traptrix monsters and trap hole cards to your side of the field. The reason why this deck can be so competitive because you can actually play it in a way where you don't lose to evenly matched. Your trap hole cards can be in your hand and activated on your side of the field while your opponent struggles to get the resources to break your board. Another thing that I like about the Traptrix card is that they can mix with other strategies fairly well. Seeing that the engine consists of about 12 to 15 cards, you have 25 other cards to play with. I mean, heck, that's exactly how Hat was started. Let's make another Hat deck, it's kind of fun. Marincess is a little anti-meta, a little locked down. I love it. The most expensive card is Signet Mining, but it's getting reprinted inside of the Duel Overload set. And you don't necessarily need Signet Mining, it just makes the deck a lot better. Outside of that, Marincess Coral Anemone, did I say that right? Anemone? Anemone? I said it right. That card. That card is the most expensive card, but pretty much other than that, the Marincess cards are fairly cheap. The best thing about this deck is being able to use your Marincess cards to cycle or surge into your Marincess wave, which is your budget option for an infinite impermanence, allowing you to negate your opponent's cards. Also, if you decide to, you could play a frog build, making totally awesome within the process, which not only gives you a negation, but you could take some of your opponent's expensive cards and use it for your own. Imagine taking their Lightning Storm and using it against them, even though you don't own a Lightning Storm. That has to be pretty fun. I kind of want to play this deck now. Now, the big problem with Marincess is having enough Marincess monsters, but the new card of Edition Exalt, Marincess Pasculus, is amazing. It gets you exactly what you need for a Marincess strategy, recursion, summoning ability. The card is good. I think that Marincess are extremely strong inside of this format. If you go all cheap, zombie control is really budget. I mean, if you don't get your ultra rare zombie worlds, you get your commons, and I think that's pretty much it. That sounds like all of the cards that are expensive. Zombie control relies on your Doom King Baladrock summoning itself to the side of the field and being able to negate and banish zombie monsters, and Zombie World kind of makes everything a zombie in its same. Vampire Sucker continuously gets you that +1 draw 1 advantage, and Rivalry of the Warlords ensures that your opponent can't overflood you, and you'll always be the ghoul instead of the goblin. That didn't make any sense. Who scripts this? The new Jackal Bowling card does provide another resource, getting zombie monsters into the graveyard as well as a zombie monster to your side of the field, and I think that this deck could be really cheap, possibly even built in less than $100. I know what you guys are gonna ask for. I'm probably already on it. Maybe. I don't know if I like it that much yet. Salamangreat is still a really competitive deck, and it still only costs 3 structured X to make. And with Salamangreat Sunlight Wolf dropping considerably in price because for some reason players think that this strategy isn't good, I think the most expensive card is Signet Mining, which is getting a reprint in Duel Overload, but it's also Salamangreat Pyro Phoenix if you decide to play it at $14. With that being said, you guys should be no stranger to the Salamangreat archetype. Being able to second summon a Link monster gets you a myriad of effects. In Sunlight Wolf's case, you'll be able to get some critical resources to your side of the field, but it allows you to activate your trap cards in Salamangreat Rage, which allows you to destroy cards on your opponent's side of the field, and then Salamangreat Roar, which allows you to negate the activation of card effects and destroy them. Being able to use this strategy to its fullest potential, a Fire Cybers deck, there's tons of avenues you can decide to go by. Whether you're using the Red Resonator to be able to special summon Brotherhood of the Firefist Horse Prince to extend plays, or just going into Salamangreat Pyro Phoenix to wipe your opponent's board, to lastly switching from a rank 3 engine to a rank 4 engine base deck and making Salamangreat Baguska under your Sunlight Wolf, and then say, hey, you can't activate monster effects because everybody else is playing all those other cards while I'm a Link-based deck. Salamangreat lost a little bit of footing by losing Mirage Stalio, but it's still an insanely powerful deck. It's still one of the best decks of the format. The last strategy we are going to talk about is extremely budget and is seen as one of the best decks of the format going forward. Shuttles are really cheap when you factor in the structure deck. Yes, granted, right now, if you go ahead and go on TCGPLAYER, you can find El Shaddai Shekinaga's ultimate rares for 20s, the secret rares for 12s, and a plethora of other Shadow cards that you feel that you must have that are pretty expensive when it all adds up. And then that's when you start to realize that, hey, all of these cards come inside of a structure deck. I don't have to spend tons of money on the Shuttle strategy. 30 bucks gets me in the entire deck. Some of the more important cards to note are Mathematician, which do come as a common or a little bit easier to find. And then the Performage Engine, which is a card that I said you guys should buy before it goes up in price. Seriously, pick this card up. But even if you don't, it is a common too, so it ain't really that much of a problem. Ultimately, Shuttles have not yet shaped the format, but I think we can all see that this deck will be powerful no matter what, and is extremely budget right now. Well, that's pretty much it for all that I have about the competitive decks that are super budget right now. I want you guys to post down below in the comment section what are some other budget decks that you feel are extremely competitive. Also, be sure to like this video up. It lets me know as a content creator that you guys want to see more of it. What other videos would you guys like to see about decks? Maybe the best decks of the format revised? Maybe some more underrated decks? I hope you guys are having a great day like I am.